After the soldiers cleared the surface of the floating soil, they opened the carpet and a white foam cover was revealed. After the cover was lifted, the air mixed with the odor surged out from the ground, and a vertical cave appeared in front of everyone. The soldiers pointed their guns at the entrance of the cave and were ready for an emergency counterattack. However, there was a sudden movement in the darkness. A pair of hands covered in dirt and shaking came out. A man with messy hair struggled and crawled out of the cave. The man in front of him was covered in dirt. He said in low English that he was Saddam Hussein and expressed his willingness to cooperate with any subsequent investigation. Just 9 months ago in Iraq at that time, the large-scale frontal war had ended. But the intelligence search for the core figures was completely blocked. The US military produced a print of Iraq, the former regime, the special cards of the core personnel. Saddam was in the most critical position. Thousands of US troops carried special cards, launched a global inspection. Even after the capture of many high-level personnel, Saddam's trace is still no clue. The search has completely entered a dead end. The interrogation room at Tikrit Air Force Base. The interrogator, who worked for many days and nights, Maddox, stared at the correlation map on the wall, decisively tore off the names of all senior officers. He developed a new idea of reconnaissance. Saddam will never trust the original officials, only trust the closest entourage, completely overthrow the previous investigation plan, no longer interrogate those so-called high-level personnel, and instead target the grassroots personnel ignored by the military, including drivers, chef and personal bodyguard. He recombed the interpersonal context on the whiteboard. All clues eventually pointed to Saddam's personal security team, and the core figure of the team did not appear in the card. The list, this person is Saddam's #1 bodyguard, Ibrahim. Maddox focused on marking this name. The real, accurate search operation, since then officially kicked off. Lock definition of the new identity is very simple. Want to capture it but difficult. Maddox immediately adjusted the plan. Since unable to directly find the target, he looked for a breakthrough from his relatives. Under high-intensity interrogation, Ibrahim's son accidentally revealed that his father likes fishing and often goes to Samara's fish farm. This detail instantly woke up Maddox, remembering the confession of Saddam's former chef. Saddam came quickly and preferred to eat grilled fish, from which it can be concluded that Ibrahim is by no means an ordinary bodyguard, but a point person responsible for delivering life materials for Saddam. Following this clue, you can find Saddam's hiding place. Special forces quickly surrounded the farm. Although Ibrahim escaped by chance, one of his relatives was captured on the spot. After continuous interrogation, the person finally compromised and confessed. To Ibrahim, he hid at the address, in the busy city of Baghdad. No one could have imagined that he actually played black under the lights. At this time, Maddox was about to return to his country and return to work. This was his last chance to capture the target. The special forces raided the apartment and controlled many personnel. At first, no one confessed who Yiga was. Maddox poisoned one of them alone. Under the heavy pressure of the interrogation, the other party finally confessed to being righteous. Among the people under control, Maddox rushed to the courtyard and took off the captives' hoods one by one. The first two were not the target. The third fat man with a terrified face was righteous. There was only one last step left to force out the specific whereabouts of Saddam. The United States announced the interrogators used a high bounty as a bargaining chip to convince Ibrahim that Ibrahim was the victory of the game, combined with the details of the subsequent exposure. The so-called special interrogation method was essentially torture. No matter what method was used, Ibrahim ultimately failed to withstand the pressure and agreed to lead the military to the target location. A large convoy set off immediately. The destination is a farm in Adawal, and the story also returns to the opening night. Many people can't help but wonder why Saddam chose to hide here. After the fall of Baghdad, Saddam was reduced to hiding everywhere. He had turned to his former subordinates and tribal leaders for help, but no one dared to take them in. Everyone was afraid of being retaliated by the US military. With no choice, he could only go to the Namik family of the same tribe, which was completely different from the initial reports of the US media. Saddam did not live in an underground cave for a long time. During his 235-day exile, he lived in a simple hut on the farm. The underground cave was only used as an emergency shelter. The cave was reinforced with masonry and cement, and the entrance was covered with a foam cover, which was difficult to detect in the soil. It was also equipped with simple ventilation pipes. When the US military patrol is approaching, he will hide in the cave to avoid danger. During his exile, Saddam did not sit still. He listened to the radio every day to keep abreast of the outside world, and also wrote instructions to secretly direct the rebellion. Farmer Namik was his only contact person, taking care of his drinking, food, and information transmission. However, in the careful deployment, It was ultimately impossible to resist the betrayal of people's hearts. A few weeks before his arrest, Ibrahim went to the farm for a meeting. As a security supervisor, he knew nothing about this underground safe haven. When Saddam briefly left the table, he asked Namik for an emergency hiding place. Namik was convinced of the #1 bodyguard and informed the cave location without reservation. No one could have predicted that this top-secret information would eventually be leaked by Yibu and Laxin in the interrogation room. It was this leak that allowed the US military to lock in the final search location. The capture operation, codenamed Red Dawn, was officially launched. 600 soldiers surrounded the farm and rummaged through houses, walls, and orchards, but found nothing. Time passed little by little, and everyone was anxious and suspected that there was an error in the intelligence. At this moment, the commander brought him Ibrahim. He went straight to the corner next to the palm aluminum tree in the courtyard. This area, which was repeatedly searched by the US military, but always ignored, was kicked open by him. The accumulated debris and soil. The soldiers immediately stepped forward to clean up the soil and old things. The white foam cover clearly appeared. A soldier pulled the safety and was ready to throw the grenade into the cave. At this moment, the cave issued a surrendering sound. The hands of the steel net protruded from the hole, and the soldiers dragged the man out. The man with unkempt hair did not resist the whole process. He tidied up his clothes, blew up his identity in sterile ink, and made a request for negotiation. The commander of the Special Forces responded in a cold tone, conveying the attitude of the US high level. After he was fully controlled, Saddam was quickly sent to the helicopter. The long-running manhunt officially ended, but this victory did not bring peace. The collapse of Saddam's regime was like opening the shackles of chaos. The local civil war broke out frequently, and extremist forces took advantage of the rise. The entire region was plunged into long-term turmoil.